Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast, your sacred space for soulful conversations, intuition, and transformation. I'm your host, Marta the Medium, and if you haven't already, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode so we can keep growing our amazing spiritual community together. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to someone truly extraordinary, Dr. Toni Reilly. Dr. Toni Reilly is Australia's foremost past life, reincarnation, and afterlife specialist and best-selling author of Awake the Purpose of Life and Why You're Here. Dr. Toni trained at Arthur Findlay College in London and under renowned psychiatrist Dr. Brian Weiss in New York. As founder of Toni Reilly Institute, she developed soul life coaching, spiritual psychology, over 2 decades of guiding thousands of clients and students to remember their past lives, visit loved ones in the afterlife, and travel in between lives for therapy and personal development. Her programs are backed up by extensive observation, research, and her own transcendent experiences. Dr. Toni's diploma of metaphysics and doctorate of divinity support her visionary programs and teachings. Toni, welcome to the podcast. It is such a joy to have you here.
Thanks, Marta. I'm excited for our conversation today. It's wonderful to be here.
Mm, let's start. I always say let's start at the very beginning of your journey, but I'm like, which lifetime or which story we should start from? But could you share uh, the moment or series of events that first drew you towards exploring past lives and the afterlife?
Wow. Yes, it's funny how life takes a turn in trajectory because it did that for me for past life exploration. Basically, hadn't really heard of past lives before. In my mid 30s, everything changed, and I was compelled to explore understanding what intuition was, because I'd been told I was psychic, and I'm like, "No, I don't think that's right." So, anyway, in that exploration, I was trying to work out what it was and that I was intuitive, and in that process, the lady who I found, a very ordinary lady, ordinary, I say she was mainstream, to teach me how to meditate, which is the pathway that I took, and she told me to read Many Lives, Many Masters, which is the book by Dr. Brian Weiss. So I read that book in record time. I think everyone does actually. And I realized that there was a purpose in that for me. It was the first time I had any inclination about that, but it just seemed like it spoke to me and it felt right. So that was it. And it was compulsion was just so extensive after that to keep following that. Yeah.
So, what happened next? Did you follow your intuition and you started training to become an expert in past lives, or did you embark first on your own personal quest in terms of maybe exploring your own past lives?
First, in that process, around the time that I was told to read that book, I was already in this big self-awareness awakening, if you like. I didn't know that there was anything wrong with me. I didn't know what issues meant. I didn't know what self-esteem meant. Before that, I never thought about it. And of course, when I started meditating, all of this stuff was going through to me, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's a fair bit wrong with me, with my not wrong per se, but I came to understand that my self-worth was quite low, that kind of thing. So in that process, and then discovering the past lives after I read the book, I immediately felt like I must have one of these sessions. And because I'd never heard of it before, I said to the lady that told me to read it, "Mary, I have to go to the States and have one of these sessions done."
Mhm.
Dr. Brian Weiss, though I don't even think he did them at the time I read the book. He'd already stopped. But she said, I can do those. So before I knew it, I was on her couch having a past life session. And then she says to me, when you have these sessions, we ask for to heal something. So what would you like to look at? And I thought, oh, okay, well, there were some strange things that I had never really thought of as strange, but they were, that had been with me my entire life. And so I thought, well, first thing I wanted to ask for is how on earth am I in my mid 30s and I don't know I'm intuitive? Why would that be?
Mm-hmm.
That was one question. The other one was, why can't I speak in front of people? I couldn't talk in front of anyone ever since I was a little kid. And I also went through school covering my writing, so no one would read it. And
Mm,
and I thought after I read that book, I thought, yeah, those things are a bit weird, really. So they were what
mm,
I asked about for that first past life regression I had. And I saw, I literally on the couch went straight in to the past life, and I could see in my mind, I could see very clearly, and the feelings were so strong. The emotions that went with it. It was as if you were there, as if I was there again. And yeah, so from that, there's a few things that happened. The first thing was I thought to myself, nobody, no matter how educated they are or how much scientific proof they have, they cannot tell me that I made that up. I know that has come from who even knew where. But so I knew, and I was very adamant from that moment forward that no one could question that because I'd had that experience myself. But the second thing that happened, of course, was it fixed those few things that I asked about, almost like a miracle.
mm,
Um, Soon after I had those sessions, or that one session, and
mm,
there was a couple of different lives that came up in it. I actually, Marta, I know that you're in Scotland, and my very first life that I recalled, I was a young girl in Scotland,
mm,
in where did it say? The town is escaping me now, but it's around North Berwick, around that area.
mm,
And later in life, I had been there. This was at least 15 years ago that when I'm talking about having this session, it may be even nearly 20 actually. Um, and it came about that I had actually come to that town or that place a few times in my travels. It always felt wonderful to me, even though I was going to be hung there for being a healer and
mm,
knowing what to do in that regard. But so anyway, it woke my intuition up and my psychic ability. It fixed my fear of writing, and it was just fabulous. And I thought,
mm,
wow, this can help people. So I said to Mary, Mary, I have to learn this. And she says, well, I have a class this weekend. She had a couple of
mm,
girls in her living room
mm,
teaching past life regression. So it was absolutely wonderful. And I guess that's so serendipitous, isn't it? As we know, things are planned and they just play out as they're meant to. But all of that was new to me then. But that was it. And here we are. I never
mm,
stopped, never stopped. And you know what was also a thing is people came as soon as I did the training, just 2 days on the weekend. I went back. I lived interstate from where I did that training, and when I went back, there were people lined up to come and have these sessions. So I, from the very first moment, recorded every session and started to observe what I thought people were really complex, and over time you come to realize they're not that complex, and we all kind of fall into certain, not patterns, but certain ways of being, and it's just so interesting. So yes.
mm. I love it. Could you talk more about that unshakable knowing that this was all real? Because so many people struggle in general with trusting that this is all real, and you had that deep knowing, which I think can help so many of our viewers and listeners. If you could talk more about that.
I feel like back then I was a very logical person,
Hmm.
and I didn't really know very much about, well, intuition or self-awareness or spirituality. It was all very new to me, so that's why I didn't have any baseline to associate with it. It was like it happened almost out of the blue. So for me, I knew that it hadn't been an imagination thing, or so I just never questioned it. It was, and the
Mm.
knowing just, it encased me. I couldn't not believe it. It was beyond belief. And as you said a moment ago, it was a knowing. I knew that it was real, or certainly this experience that I had was real and extraordinary. I felt like it was extraordinary.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mm. So you've trained with both Arthur Finlay College in London and Dr. Brian Weiss in New York. What were the most profound lessons you took from each experience?
Oh gosh, they're two very different trainings because
Hmm.
the Arthur Findlay College is mediumship,
Hmm.
and all of these things became interesting to me in my early days of awakening. So maybe I'll talk about the past lives first because actually I got right into that before
Okay.
mediumship. So when I went for training with Brian Weiss, a few things had happened. Before I went, I had started a circle. And lots of people used to come to the circle, and we would sit and meditate and get messages, and really we were enhancing our intuition. And I remember it was all so new, but the information would come through to me, and then I would share it, as did everyone in the circle. There may be 20 people, and you'd go around, and each person would say what happened to them while we were meditating. And I can remember just before I was going for training with Dr. Brian Weiss that I was told in my mind, in my thoughts, "You're going to meet a teacher over there." And I answered back with my thoughts. I said, "Yes, I know. It's Brian Weiss." And it said, "No, his name is Dan." And I'm like, "Oh." And it went on and said a few more things to me in my mind. That clairaudience thing for me is really strong.
Hmm.
So anyway, said, "Oh, it's Dan that you're going to meet." And then it started to say Dan and Dave, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So anyway, when it came my turn to tell the group what I got, I told them that that's what I heard. And I when I went to New York a couple of weeks later, I, of course, met Dan and Dave at the training
Hmm.
for Dr. Brian Weiss, and
Right.
I clearly remembered that in
Hmm.
my meditation I was told, "You're going to meet a teacher." And so Dan, who actually in New York, you had to get on a bus and go for a couple of hours. The place where he teaches at Omega campus is a couple of hours out of New York City. So I got on the bus, and I was fresh over from Australia, so it was a bit of a novelty. And I thought, I'm going to sit at the front so I can
Hmm.
look at the countryside and everything. And anyway, that whole big bus filled up with people. And this man got on at the end. There's one seat left beside me. He comes in and he says, "Oh, excuse me, can I sit here?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he sits down. I said, "Well, what's your name?" "Dan." I'm like, "Oh." So anyway, Dan and I talked for the whole 2.5 hour trip. And it turned out that he was an established hypnotherapist and a therapist as well. He worked with children, wayward children, and all sorts of wonderful things. He was a wonderful person. But the intuition thing was very new to him. And because it was new to me and so enthralling, I was talking to him about it. But the thing that I took away, aside from the wonderful things that I learned from Dr. Brian Weiss, was Dan says to me at one point, "We're all volunteers, not victims." And I thought, "Oh, that's the most profound thing I'd heard at the time."
Hmm.
And it had it fit with the few things that I had surmised to that date. So I
Mm.
thought, wow, that's really good. And he said a lot of things that were just, they resonated with me. So he, and then of course his roommate over there was called Dave. So we would get into big, deep conversations. Dave was also a hypnotherapist, and they'd both come to this past life training. Interestingly, the three of us were on the wait list, and we all got in at the last minute. So yes, really interesting. But I also learned, the thing that I learned most from Dr. Brian Weiss was he didn't gatekeep anything. He wanted
Mm.
everybody to know about this. And I thought that was the most incredible thing about him. So genuine, so lovely, and so wanting everybody to know about this rather than, um, I guess, being egotistical and trying to keep it to
Mm.
himself. So those were a couple of my takeaways from that trip. Oh, I do remember with Dan as well, I had become new to the pendulum. And
Okay.
the energy moves the pendulum.
Mhm.
And I said to him, "Oh, um, let's get a pendulum." So we go over on campus, there's a little like spiritual shop with crystals and cards and all that kind of thing. And so come and I'll show you how the pendulum works. And he was very skeptical. And
Mhm.
anyway, he's came with me anyway to the store. And as I walked past the pendulums, there was heaps of them. They started moving, and he was like, "What, what's happened?" And he's looking around to see if the door's open and that, if there's wind or
Mhm.
anything like that. And yeah, he was like, "What on earth is that?" I'm like, "It's energy." It was all new to me then too, but so fun and such exciting times. Long ago now, but I still get excited by what energy can do.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I love it. So let's
yeah.
focus and carry on past lives before I then ask you about anything to do with mediumship. I
Okay.
feel like it's a nice continuation. So when you now take someone into a past life regression, what are some of the most surprising patterns or themes that emerge, or anything that you would like to speak? Because you've already mentioned that we aren't really that complicated, that you can see certain patterns that maybe repeat. So I'm curious about maybe the most common patterns, but also those some surprising patterns or anything that's like made you think like, wow.
I think I think what I realized is the most important things within the past lives are the same things that are important now. So it's kind of like simple, really. So one of the things that I came to realize, that our purpose is here, our purpose, why are we here as humans, was to have an emotional experience. Because in
Hmm.
that transcendent space, it's not there, nor is our brain either, nor our thoughts. So it's all about the emotions. And with all of these past lives, the same things affected people. So it was all about how they felt. Did they have a great mom, or a distant mum, or no mum? What was their childhood like? Were they loved? Were they not? Were they abandoned? Were they rejected? Were they loved? These things mattered. And then throughout life, it was things like, did they have friends at school? Did they even go to school? Of course, before school, we didn't. We started off as cavemenish. People go back that far, and then it's still about the connection with people, the connection with other people, and how how well it goes. Is it supportive or is it not? And the emotions that it invokes in us. So important things were, of course, the relationships, how they got along, the character of the person, how they perceive themselves, the birth of children, the death of someone, those things that affect us now, they affected people forever. The same things. And I think probably the other thing that I found, I got to say, it's beautiful, is death. Death is the most
Mhm.
important part in the therapeutic process of past life regression
Mhm.
or past life recollection, mainly because it's the gateway to that person communing with their soul. But in death, the person almost always knew that their time was up, even if it was traumatic. Most people go very peacefully. Even if it was traumatic, the soul's detached almost, and the the it's not feeling that horrendous pain that I think people fear how they might go. It's quite extraordinary and beautiful in some ways. And I know even myself, when I've died in the past lives and you feel what it's like
Mhm.
to die, sometimes it feels incredible and
Mm.
peaceful. And once you die, also, you're immediately back to this all knowing soul. So, those were some of the things that are consistent. They're consistent. I think probably one of the other things that I still love when you work with people is if they're skeptical. Some
Mm.
people are skeptical. I find skepticism really a great thing because
Mhm.
people are not, they don't want to uh, reject it. They're curious, but questioning.
Mhm.
So they're not cynical, they're skeptical. And then often you get people who they let you know how skeptical they are, and yet they still recall maybe even more clearly than some other people
Mhm.
do. And it's just magical. It makes my heart warm every time. And I think probably the other thing with the past lives is no matter how potentially traumatic we perceive what's happening is, they see it from a higher perspective. And there is a reason why these things happen. And
Mhm.
they find out why it happened. In fact, that's the whole point of the therapy. We need to find out why did that happen. And it helps people have a completely, I'm going to call it wise perspective on what happened then. And it transfers to now because you see life differently after that. Just feel less, I guess, less like everything's traumatic or it's happening to us. There's once it's got a purpose and you understand why, it makes you so tolerant, first of yourself and then of others as well.
Mm.
Quite
I love it. I have
amazing.
I have many, many questions, and I'm going to various directions, but maybe let's expand a little bit more about. Well, I'd like to talk about death. Do you think that because people, when they come to your past life regressions, they experience their own deaths, do you think like they go through that feelings or thoughts, oh, I've died once, I've died twice, why would I be like scared now? Like part of me like thinks it can also help with the fear of death, like in this current lifetime, because as you described, when you realize and when you experience those emotions of going through your own death in different lifetimes. And first of all, you see why it happened and that there are purposes, but also that you experience that peace.
Yeah,
That part of me feels that it can help people who maybe in the past were scared of their own
yeah.
death that's about to come. Could you like expand a little bit about that?
Marty, you're so right because probably the biggest fear that people have, and it's underlying, is the fear of death. And I think, I mean, even if you think about why are people taking vitamins, it's because they want to live longer and not face the end. But
Mm-hmm.
when they have regression, past lives, and they see or experience death, yes,
Mm.
it most certainly eases that up. And that is one of the almost guaranteed side effects of it is it releases that fear and gives a broader perspective on certainly death and life in general.
And what can you learn about yourself while experiencing your own deaths in the past life? Because I don't want people to get scared. Oh no, I'm not going to go for a past life now regression. I absolutely do not want. I just would love to speak about the benefits of that remembering.
So there's a few things that happen. Sometimes people have physical symptoms now that they cannot find, either usually can't find even any evidence of it when they go to a Western doctor, for example, but yet they might have these migraines that persist, or pain in the back, or whatever. Sometimes they feel like their legs are not there, all sorts of strange physical symptoms. And what happens is, very often, if not always, it's
Mm-hmm.
at the death scene from a past life that has created that physical symptom now, and it goes immediately. So there's that. But the death scene, something happens when people go there in past life regression, and something happens deep within them. Well, it's because they're communicating with their soul, who knows exactly what they're doing here. And for that reason, they always come out and say that they feel lighter. So the actual death becomes inconsequential. So it's difficult to explain. It's almost like you have to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're Marta, it's a good thing to raise, where people may be actually afraid to have regression. So the assurance that I can give is, you will always come out feeling better about life, about yourself, and even about what you've witnessed in the past life. I think people also fear sometimes, who are they going to be in the past life? What have they done? And
Mm-hmm.
for sure, we've done all sorts of things, because we've all been here so many times. But what we find out is, why did we live that life? Or more so, this, why are you shown that life now? Because given how many each of us will have had, we do only get to see a few now, because somehow there's some key information that's relevant for this life. And always we do past lives, or explore our past lives, to make this life better. It's not to dwell on the past. It brings some awareness into this life that makes things better.
And something that has popped into my mind is that it's worth, if you're watching it or listening, to go through your own fear
Yeah.
of revisiting even well, past life and any fears that you've got, because I am really seeing the word freedom at the end of the tunnel. I feel
Yeah.
it's worth to lean into the discomfort and just let it happen. Could you talk a little bit more about the journey from fear to freedom?
The fear to freedom. I
Hmm.
suppose when most people come for regression, certainly a long time ago anyway, they were coming as a last resort to fix something that was hindering them. So something that they were afraid of, whether it was trying to work out why they feel anxious, or why they, have certain phobias. So they were always coming to address some fear on some level. And then what happens in the past lives, their soul knows which life or lives to present to them, to help them understand. Sometimes the fear is of being alone, for example, being
Hmm.
alone, or being left, which is abandonment, really. But some people have that fear, that's just one, so strong, and they'll come to understand why. Or maybe another example would be a mama who has an unrealistic fear of perhaps her children being taken, or something's going to happen to them. And often and it can be debilitating, and certainly
Mm.
smothering of their children as well. So to ease that fear for them, come and have a past life regression. If there's nothing in this life that contributed to it, nothing obvious,
Hmm.
then the answer will most certainly be found in a past life, and it will alleviate it. it'll alleviate it because we find out why. Why did you have to go through that in the past life? It's so simple that it's almost ridiculous. It's so simple how powerful it is and how much it changes lives from just seeing what happened and then understanding why it happened. That's what all
Mm-hmm.
it does to make the cure, heal the fear
Mm,
and bring freedom into one's life.
I
Personal
love
freedom,
I love
powerful.
it. Could you talk a little bit about how past life regression session with you looks like? Because you've answered already in a way my question that like by just recalling and remembering a transformation happened. But I'm curious whether during those sessions it is just remembering and people revisiting a couple of lifetimes. What happens basically during your session?
If we all the sessions are different, but if we go through a bit of a textbook case, it would look something like this. The person is relaxed, so they're in a relaxed state phase so that they can start to access the memories. And then typically what would happen is they start to remember themselves in a past life, and we establish generally if they're male or female, what they're wearing, how old they are, and most importantly, how they're feeling. And from there, that first scene that they drop into, you never know where it's going to be. So from that scene, we work out, as a facilitator, you work out, do we need to go back and find more information, or is it okay to just go forward from here? So we navigate around the lifetime looking for particular significant events, which often are places when they felt hurt or were physically hurt. But usually it's emotional. So that's what happens. And you say to them to move to a significant event, or if the story's quite established, you can tell them to go forward or backwards in it, and they do immediately. And we start to gather information. Usually, we're gathering information about what they asked for in the first place. So if they've come with a specific symptom, we're looking for something that's happened in the past life
Mhm.
that's caused that symptom now. And over time, all this time and all these sessions that have done, you come to know what to look for, what to press for, what's not important. And I think one of the things when you're doing past life regression for therapy, it's quite different to just doing it out of curiosity, because you could take someone through a past life purely out of curiosity. What happened, and
Mhm.
go through their whole life with them and see how um, how they turned out as an adult, how their
Mhm.
life went, did they marry, all of those things. But when we're doing it for therapy, we're looking for key moments within that life to answer the symptom that we're looking for or we're looking to fix. So we're working through the life, and then the most important process is after we've navigated through the life, gathered information, we've fairly well established who they are, and we get to the death scene. Super important, because when we go through the death scene, is always peace. Is always peace around that time once they go through, and that's when we can facilitate them speaking to their soul. So at that point, the client's always very relaxed and they have
Mhm.
their eyes closed, but at that time we are speaking to whomever they just were. So let's say they were just recalling a life as Sam. We're then talking to Sam and seeing what message, or hearing what message, what does Sam want you to know? Or whomever they just were. And they get a message that is for now. Always the message comes through to them for now. Sometimes it's so simple. Sometimes it might be something so simple like trust or believe. And they're so cliche, those things. But when their soul says it to them, it's like
Mhm.
suddenly it becomes clear what it means to believe in yourself, or to trust yourself, or to trust others. Whatever it might be, once the soul tells them, it's so
Mhm.
meaningful. And that's how a session works. We also do a little energy healing at the end as well, so that they often will get. Do you know how Reiki works? Or I always call it energy healing, but I think that little adjustment that they have at the end of the session means that they come out always feeling better, lighter. They
Mm,
usually say, "I feel lighter." Yeah.
I love
So
it.
it's beautiful. Well, it's beautiful, and it's, you know what, as a facilitator as well, it's truly, I guess, a blessing that you get people opening up to you, and sometimes the lives are quite, I'm gonna say, generic. A lot of them are, but occasionally there's some strange. Oh, Marta, my earbud just fell out. Give me a sec.
Uh-huh, of course.
Hopefully it just flicks back in. Um, I lost my train of thought. Oh my goodness. I forgot where I was.
Past
Hmm.
life.
Yeah, we were
Yeah,
going
no,
through the process and towards
no.
towards the
Reiki,
end.
energy
Oh,
attunement
the
after the
energy
session.
healing. So
Yeah.
sometimes, or at the end of the session, we do this energy adjustment, and people, they come out and say all sorts of things. Maybe they just felt really relaxed, but sometimes they're given extra information, or they literally feel where parts of their body are adjusted, and so extra healing takes place. It's
Mhm.
just extraordinary, and yeah, they come out and tell you so. But, basically, when we're doing regression, there's not a whole lot that comes from the facilitator, because what our job as the facilitator is to have their soul give them the information,
Mm.
and that way it resonates with them more than if they get it from someone else telling them, a counselor or a therapist. It's
Mm.
amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
And it reminds me, well, I do past life regressions as well. And it was years ago that my spirit team, well, I don't want to say encourage, forced me to do it. And they said, "You're going to be doing it." I'm like, "I have no idea how to do it." "No, no, you're ready." So I wasn't trained. I'm an intuitive. And well, I know you're going to believe me, but just after that, a day after, two of my friends contacted me independently without me knowing. I had that conversation with my spirit team, and they asked me to do a past life regression for them. And then that's how it started. And then my spirit team taught me like how to, like, the entry points are always different for every single person.
Yes.
But what I wanted to say, where I'm going with that, another thought that I've got, that in my psychic mediumship courses, so many of my students would like me to tell them, "Oh, who is my spirit guide? Who is?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." So I love to take them through a meditation, and I love to give them power back. I'm like, "No, no, no, you tell me. Let's all like increase the energy in the room together and see what you are able to, what your soul remembers." I feel it's so
Yes.
important, as opposed to
Absolutely.
us telling people.
It's so magical. I love the way you work. Yeah, I think all of those connections, and I know we're going to be talking about mediumship a bit, but the other thing that came about from this process, which I'm sure you'll understand now that I know you do past life regression as well, is when people are in that relaxed state, their past over person can come through directly to them. No medium required. It's like they come through to you or to the person. And that was also another side thing that started to happen for people, and it's just magical. But I wanted to go back to you mentioning that you are not trained, but you're two people come in to ask for regression. I I truly, truly believe and trust that training is not necessarily required. I must admit that my training was quite minimal. It was done through when I had those 2 days with Mary. What she did was she regressed us, and we watched. So we watched her regress. There was 3 girls, myself and 2 others, so we watched her regress. That was the extent of the training. So that's what you had, and I think I think you can learn a lot from just doing and trusting. I guess, and you must have as well, trusted in yourself. For some reason, well, I guess it's serendipity that I felt so confident from the first minute with it. And I guess that goes with trusting the path and the guidance. And as you said, you were guided and away you go with it. I love
Mm-hmm.
that that happens.
Mm-hmm.
You don't question it. Follow
Yeah.
the
Well, I did it, for instance, in
guidance.
my case, I did it because my spirit guides are very outspoken and they would be speaking all over me. And then I was just honest, like I have no idea how to do it. And then they said, but we know it. So like my role was to trust, to relax and allow, it's the same like mediumship, to allow that information to flow through me. So they were telling me how to take those people. And like, so trust is very important. But also my spirit team, they've been joking throughout the years as well about various certifications. And like, Marta, you do not need another PhD. You do not need, and like, no, we are going to give you all certifications. Just trust and allow us to work. You are a vessel. Well, we need you. Like, allow us to work. I'm like, okay, okay.
Oh, Marta, that's so special. And I can relate because everything, almost everything that I did it streamed through me, which comes from, you call it the spirit team, I call it the peeps. It's basically our soul giving us this information. And most of everything that I developed came through that stream, not from what are other people doing or reading what they're doing or studying what they were doing. And why I later got my doctorate was I'd fully established all of my new psychology that I had developed over nearly 20 years before, and I got that doctorate really for credibility of other people's perception rather than that it
Mm,
contributed to the work that I did. It really truly streamed and it came through anecdotal evidence through doing this thousands of times and having my own experiences as well with these transcendent realms. So, yeah,
mm. Thank you for sharing. And I've even written today a post because I still get, well, I don't want to say triggered, frustrated. And like my post for today was that when I used to be a translator, I had to be a part of the Institute of Linguists. When I used to
yeah,
be a social anthropologist, I had to be a member of the Royal Institute of Anthropologists. And then when we talk about psychic mediums, like it feels to me like sometimes that if you're tested by scientists, if you're a member of a known spiritualist churches, or if you've been trained by a guru or someone, some people would give you that credibility. They would think that, okay, she can do it. She's the great deal. I'm like, no, it's about trusting and about knowing that, like, the minute you become of service, the minute you operate from the heart space and you allow that information to flow through you, you're like credible enough. So I guess like it's part of my mission as well, while being on social media, to speak openly that it's the spirit team and the other side that will be guiding us as well. And those are like ego-based human-made constructs, and there's organizations that they're very useful. We can learn a lot, but sometimes I feel they want to keep us small and they want to keep us in boxes.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, stick
Yeah.
to the rules, stick to the um,
Mhm.
procedures. Yeah,
That
we
must be
don't.
my past life because I do not like to be labeled and clashed. Yeah, it's part of me.
Don't
Like let.
don't
Yeah.
you think though, knowing the trajectory of humanity at the moment, it becomes really clear why these boxes they're failing and they're crumbling and they're failing and they're ceasing. Certainly in the psychology world, the way that psychology worked with people who were logical, maybe it worked. But people who are super sensitive, which all of the children are now, actually, the kids that are mid-20s and down, so not even kids anymore, they don't respond. they don't respond to those boxes.
Mm,
They need what we can can share and teach and help them embrace. And I feel really honored to have been given this stream, and you obviously have too, and to be able, and I guess to be given the courage to go out and bring it to mainstream. That's what I was told all those years ago, was the mission was to bring this past lives, energy, all of that into mainstream. And because of that, because I was told that, I thought, oh, I've got to watch the language that I use. So I
mm,
tried to, as much as I might ask the angels for a parking spot because it's just energy, um, I avoided using those kinds of terms and tried to speak mainstream and dress fairly mainstream, that kind of thing. But it's really all just perception. I knew exactly what I was doing, and um, what the purpose behind what I was doing was for. It's been really magical, can I say?
mm. Can we
Yeah.
talk about, well, your view, and yeah, can we talk about the purpose of life? Because I know it's you've got that. Well, I want to say body of experience, knowledge, both studied but lived throughout lifetimes. But yes, if you can talk anything that pops into your mind when I've just mentioned the
So,
purpose of life.
yeah, the purpose of life, I feel, is people think that it's a destination, or it's an achievement. It's actually every moment of every day. That's the purpose of
Mm,
life. We're living every moment of every day is part of why we're here. So the purpose, what I've discovered is most people have a certain, that we fall into a category of what we're doing. And you know what? It does come back to an astrology sign. Of course, it's much more complex than the sun sign or a numerology number, the life path. But those things, those tools can help us see what are we doing here. But usually what we're doing each time, and it's not that we do it once, we'll have done the same thing many times, but I note that it's, for me, for example, I'll use me for an example. I'm a life path 5, or life mission, and part of my mission is about communication. So it's very visceral and it's very life. It's nothing to do with being spiritual. It's about communicating with a partner in a relationship. It's all about life experiences and what we're doing in life rather than being spiritual. And I think being in this spiritual realms and knowing how energy works and that kind of thing, I really thought, I studied everything, observing, I mean, and it's like people still reach the marks and have the experiences, whether they're spiritual or not. We still evolve through life just as we're meant to. And I think that's really interesting. So being spiritual is just another experience, I suppose, that we have um, in our lives. And I guess we're in these realms at the minute, but I feel like it's more than being spiritual. I feel like it's more about normalizing it. And it's not a spiritual thing, it's more an everyday
mhm.
thing that we have. We have this access to energy, we have our intuition. We are psychic because we can, because our life is blueprinted before we're born. So it's possible to feel into what's happening for ourselves and potentially for others if our mission includes working with others. So yeah, I think that's it. The purpose of life is every minute of every day. But I feel like the basis is the emotion that we feel. Every thought we have invokes an emotion. It doesn't matter what emotion, but it gives us an emotion. And I think we're driven by emotions. Whether we realize it or not, they're playing a role, and we're affecting those around us, and people are affecting us as well by their emotions. So it's pretty. amazing, really,
Hmm.
and
And what's
simple.
uh, well, this is the word that just popped into my mind. No coincidence, simple. I wanted to ask you what's one simple step that our viewers and listeners could take to start reconnecting with their soul's calling?
Oh my goodness. I feel like the most important thing that you can do is develop your intuition, because in that process, you start to meditate. And in that process, you're connecting with your soul. You're quietening down your mind. You're connecting with your soul. You start to learn about yourself. And I don't think people understand self awareness until it happens. But that's what happens. And it changes you. And it's so incredible. So I think to learn about yourself, and even if you don't develop your intuition, which is one brilliant way, if you start to explore your astrology sign, explore who you are through your life map, we call it in our system, or life path numerology, you will learn about yourself and you will start to like yourself. And I think that's the key. People are so hard on themselves, and it's like, go and see what you're about at the core, and you will like yourself.
Hmm. Thank you. And can you talk more about your soul life coaching? Because I think it's so inspiring and it's so important again for people to hear that you can blend that intuition with science and with so many other modalities. And I'm just curious about because I know it's part of your work.
We Thank you for asking. We call it soul life psychology, and initially, that was the name that was given to me, and
Hmm.
it's a culmination of a few things. It's intuition, development.
Hmm.
It's also the blueprint that we can learn about ourselves, see what are we doing here. Um, the therapy within soul life psychology is the It's past life regression is just one aspect, so we called it recall therapy because we're recalling the core.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's a past life, sometimes we can go back to the life plan, like in between and beyond, and sometimes it's in childhood, so this life. So recall therapy, and we also, in the soul life psychology, we included what I call bruises. Everybody comes to do a bruise or more than one. It defines how we react to emotions. Starts off with an emotion that we feel as a little kid, for example, and we develop a coping mechanism and decide how we're going to be in the world to avoid feeling that again. And those are things that we can unravel quite easily within this coaching. It depends whether the person's ready for all that intensity, but certainly if they come along for this type of coaching or therapy, then they're most likely ready, and it will be the biggest blessing for them because they feel seen and liberated, and things are making sense no matter how traumatic their circumstances have been. So, soul life psychology. I feel like I should say this. We called it soul life psychology initially, but I changed it a few years in because I thought, "Oh, I don't want to be in trouble per se, because
Hmm.
psychology is so
Mm.
gate kept." And but so we switched it and we called it soul life coaching. But and of course, what we did was we certify people who've trained in both the psychology and the soul life coaching. But we've gone back to soul life psychology. I feel like I just feel like it fits it more what it is. But really, it's just about getting to know yourself, understanding why things have happened in your life, and why you're the way you are. And it's liberating to know those things. Makes life make sense.
Hmm. It makes me feel so hopeful because, well, there's so many things I want to mention, but especially because you're training what I want to call the next generation of intuitive therapists. So the fact that I know you're allowing them to honor the both the unseen, like soul level insights,
Yeah.
that wisdom with the grounded and practical support. It just makes my heart like full. I'm just getting chills. Like it. Could you talk more about like training other light workers, healers? This is so important.
Yes, it's such a beautiful thing to do, to take people through the training. Part of the training, or part of the way we train our people, is they go through this whole self-awareness. So it's, while we're learning to work with others, we're working on ourselves. And so when people come to train, they get this big shift within themselves. So it's a beautiful thing to teach. And it's also, they come out changed, and also ready to help. They want to help anyway. It's why they're drawn in the first place. But they come out and be like, helping's not what they thought it was before they start the course. And come out knowing, I guess, how to help without pushing our own stuff. And no matter who we are on this planet, as a human, we got stuff. We come to do stuff and work through stuff so we all have it, and we all have the capacity to put it onto other people. So that's what we do in the training, is help our therapists understand themselves so they don't do that. Or at least if
Mm.
they do, they're aware of it and they can reel it back in. But I think, I hope it's okay. I want to say, because you have kids, what I didn't know when I first started this and was told what to do, and this is the mission, I didn't realize that it was for the young people. So I was well into it, perhaps even 12 years into it, before I realized, oh, or I was told it was for the young people born 2000 on, mainly because they bring a whole new energy to humanity. Doesn't matter where they're born, what
Mm.
culture, they bring they bring this element of, I like to say, it's inherent intuition, which we all have anyway, but the way that we can see it is they all have a two in their characteristics, and two energy, because they're born in 2000, and since then every single person has that in their blueprint. And that's about kindness, it's about empathy, it's natural intuition, it's natural, yes, compassion for other people. And every single kid since 2000 has it. Some of us have it as well, if we had two in our um, birth dates, but, or some of us are super intuitive before that anyway, but those kids are changing things. And I think and you can see that they're different. And I know that some people really find them very frustrating. I think they're just incredible. And I think it's so funny to see that things as basic as work-life balance, that we were taught to have work-life balance, and yet the kids come in and they don't want to work the way that we were taught to.
Mhm.
They won't. They say, no, I'm not doing it. It doesn't make sense. So no, I won't do that. Um, and I just think it's wonderful that they're coming through and changing things. I know that it goes a whole lot deeper than my my little umbrella statement there, but I think that psychology or support for them is so critical, because they're almost all have some sort of anxiety, and they think something's wrong, and it's like, there's nothing wrong, you're just tuned into everything. And
Mm.
we can help them understand that's what's happening and how to work with it, understand when it's theirs, 'cause sometimes it is, and understand when it's not. And I think it's critical to help them navigate life.
Mm. Yes, yeah, because this was the question that's just popped into my mind. Like I can see it for my children. My daughter's 9, my son's 12, but they're like so intuitive, and yeah, I just love it. But they are part of the system, part of the structure. And I think it's so important to talk about whether we call it spiritual leadership or, yeah, how do we support that generation without really imposing or shadowing that innate wisdom and telling them, oh no, you're wrong. You should stick to what we are preaching to be the truth. How do we co-create with them rather than guide from above?
Yeah, I feel like I feel like we have to start at the start to switch the cog in a way, and it hasn't quite happened yet, but I know it's happening. I feel like we need to start with the young kids at school, so changing curriculum and as simple
Mm.
as teaching our children to understand themselves, because
Mm.
it gives this inherent tolerance for others when you understand not everyone's aligned, but it's okay, and it's the way it is, so then you don't have to be nasty to someone, or you don't have to, feel so frustrated by the way that someone is. So I think if we can teach the kids that sort of self-awareness about who they are when they first start school, maybe before, then I feel like over time, what happens is, of course, they grow into adults who have children, and then we can break the cycle where it's normal to understand who you are and what the differences are with all people. So I mean, on a grand scale, that's what I see happening, and I know in our lifetime we will be we will get to implement that. Everything's changing so fast, but as far as our own children and how do we relate to our own children, I kind of indoctrinated mine. I didn't mean to. It's just that I had them, so they were around when I was doing all this. And I have 3. My kids are just, they're all born in the 90s, and, they're super intuitive and super receptive, I'm gonna say. So, though not necessarily on the spiritual bent, for them, it's just life. So, what I always like to do is, or what I did, was talk to them about what was going on for them. How were they feeling? Sometimes they'd be like, "It's not just that, mum. Can't it just be that some shitty thing happened?" It's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, yeah, but there's a reason why." So I would usually talk to them about that, and um, I liked to give them the freedom to express and then talk about it and give them a bit more of a compassionate perspective.
Mhm. I love it.
Yeah. But I think certainly all emotions are to be felt, so there's no
Mm.
right or wrong ones. I think it's just about teaching them to be tolerant of themselves when they get triggered as well, and, yeah, trying to have a broad perspective on why.
Mhm. Yes, certainly. I've been told since my children were born that both of my children feel very safe in front of me because I'm divorced, but I've been the parent in front of whom and in whose presence my children have expressed everything. Everything, like from like the happiness to frustration, anger,
Yeah.
and I started perceiving it, oh, what an honor it is, actually, as much as it is sometimes challenging as a parent and having that human experience. Then I'm like, wow, actually they feel safe to be able like to shout and be angry, and then like we speak about it, and then like with my daughter we clash, and then I go and I apologize, she apologizes, and then like we hug, but we also, I keep underlining like, I am so proud of you. I cannot also speak openly because I don't want them, I sometimes swear, but I never tell my children like not to. Of course I don't want them to use like derogatory words and call anyone else by like swearing, but if they swear and they like express, I'm like so proud. Well, of course I don't tell them like, yes, go for it, but like important because I know how when I was a child, my parents tried to stop it. So the fact that they're able to express it, I'm like, this is so good because they're not storing it. And yeah.
Marta, I also swear a lot. And, but I don't call people names, and I never did with the kids. I never called them names.
Yes, there's a
So,
difference,
but
right?
I think, usually for me, swearing, I think it's just a habit, actually. I do it that much. But, um, yeah, I love what you've said. You're allowing the kids to express themselves, and um, think allowing them to on not controlling them in every thought, or allowing them to think for themselves to some extent, and not telling them how to be completely. So I think it's really important. Give them some freedom to be who they are.
Mhm. Thank you. And I still have to ask you, well, I cannot finish the interview without asking you about your psychic mediumship journey. Anything that you'd like to talk about that aspect of, well, it's not only of your work, of who you are.
Gosh, I remember because I started divorce was the catalyst for me too. But when I started developing my intuition and then got into the mediumship, it was a bit of a natural progression to explore. And I remember, certainly in Australia, it was quite weird, I'm gonna say, the energy around it, and it was all a bit fearful, and there was all this, you have to protect yourself, and I remember thinking, "That does not I don't believe that. That didn't feel right to me."
Hmm.
To me, it felt natural, and, um, I mean, I felt really safe within everything that was happening, and I could see why people might be fearful because things are happening potentially, things are moving, and you can't see the energy that's moving it. But once you understand what's possible, it's not at all scary. But I feel like, that was the biggest thing that I loved about going to Arthur Findlay College, um, was it affirmed all those things that I felt were right, in that they treated it as just an extension of who we are as a person, and a capacity that we have. So, that was brilliant. And one of the things, I don't say this because everybody has to be into it, but in my life, I do love to have a little, drink with my friends and a bit of a dance. I have a lot of fun with that. And I don't associate, what you drink or what you eat affects any of your energetic capacities to be
Hmm.
psychic or to be a medium. But I've heard so much stuff out there about what you're eating and what you're doing, and it's like, oh, it's all energy. None of that actually
Hmm.
does that. So the college made me, that was my favorite thing, was like they went and had fun together and had a drink after class, after a big day of mediumship, and, I loved that. So, to me, it made it very everyday. Just doesn't, not to say that everyone has to be a drinker, but
Hmm.
it was more social as well, and not, um, restrictive about what you have to do. You have to go and meditate every day at 5 o'clock, or you have to do this or that. It just wasn't like that, and I loved that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what I love about mediumship and about people like you who speak openly about us deciding essentially for ourselves what works for us as opposed to sticking to a rigid routine. And there were moments in my life where I wanted to meditate for a long time, but sometimes I meditate while gardening, while cooking, tidying up.
Yeah,
It's the For me, it's a process of being able to clear my mind, as an example. And then with alcohol, for instance, my body rejected alcohol,
yeah, yeah,
and it just rejected. And I noticed for myself, I feel so much better. So I don't drink
yeah,
occasionally. If I go on holiday, I might have a drink or two.
yeah,
But then again, I had to release the guilt, because I felt guilty because there was a pressure that I should probably doing it. I should be. I'm like, no,
Really?
no, no. I am sticking to what works for me, what I'm enjoying, what supports me, and I don't. I'll say it. I don't care whether it's yeah. Basically, I've started implementing and doing things that work well for my soul, body, mind.
Yeah. I think that's the key, isn't it? It's finding what works for you, and then doing that, following that. There's no in the development of our mediumship, our psychic ability, our intuition. Um, it's all about finding what works for you and how you get your information through and learning to trust that. So it's pretty magical and definitely no right or wrong and no rules, no rigid rules. Find what works for you. Yeah.
Mhm. So, what's next for you, Tony? Are there any projects? I'm sure there are, but any new projects, retreats, teachings you're excited to bring into the world? And how can people work with you in general? Please
Oh,
share.
thanks, Marta, for asking. So I do sessions at the moment, recall sessions and life map sessions. They're on my website. I do them on Zoom so we can do them from anywhere in the world. I also am just about to start a mediumship circle. I've been guided for so long. I did them a long time ago, but now it's like it's key. That's what I've been being told actually. Mediumship is key. And I think it might be just this is it's a gateway to wisdom. That's the way I see it. And I think
Hmm.
when people are drawn in, that's what happens. And maybe it's their inner wisdom as well. So we're starting a mediumship couple of circles so that they can fit with time zones if anyone's interested to join them. In Australia, it's Monday. They're going to be on Mondays, but I think in America it will be Sunday night. And anyway, there's one for the time zones. There's that happening. But also, there is solo psychology. We do it once a year. It takes most of a year to study, and it's 1 day a week. It's actually just an hour or 2 hours a week where we have a live class, and that starts, I think, at the end of February, goes till end of October. So soul psychology, if you're keen to learn it, it's phenomenal. It's a quite a big year. You end up bonded up with your classmates and learning a whole lot about yourself and also how to really make an impact with helping people. So if anyone's interested in any of that, I'd love to hear from you.
Mhm. And where can people find you? And I'm going to add all of the links in the description of the podcast.
On my website, Toni Reilly Institute
Mhm.
and .com, and I'm all over social media as well. Well, actually, I've been not on there so much of late, but I've got all of the social media, so there's plenty of things to watch and
Mhm.
listen to. Yeah.
Thank you. Finally, if you could leave our listeners and viewers with one soul message for today, something they can carry into their own spiritual journey, or anything that you would like to share or leave them with.
I really want to tell you to get to know yourself so that you like who you are. I feel like it's the most important thing because people are really mean to themselves, and it filters out and affects their children and their relationships. So get to know who you are and get to like yourself. It's kind of it's really not that hard, even if you just go and look up your birth date and check out some good aspects about you.
Mm. Tony, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, energy, but I also want to say thank you for opening your heart with us today. I really
Thank
appreciate.
you. Thank you, Marta. Thank you for doing your podcast. It's a beautiful thing to do.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to all of the listeners and viewers. Goodbye, everyone. Bye bye.